Welcome, everybody, to Stay Curious. I'm your host, Mark Marquette. So glad that you've joined us on this Monday, January 19th, 2026. We're over the weekend. Rollout fever and Artemis fever hit the Space Coast here in a big way. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about a couple other contracts that were given out by NASA on January 19th. In 1959, Rocketdyne got the contract for the F1 engines. And we had a great program last week with Kevin Hostrasser about the F1 engine, including a beautiful 3D model he made. We're also going to talk about in 1961, Hughes was given the contract to build the Surveyor spacecraft, the spidery three-legged unmanned lander on the moon to prove that we could land on the moon softly, as well as that the whole surface of the moon wouldn't cave in. So, because we didn't, so many unknowns about the moon at the time. And then in 1962, on January 19th, a contract for the Titan Gemini launch vehicle was given out. So we love talking about space history. We love our partners around the globe, and we love you watching us today with all the interest that you have there for space. So I'm going to beam up here. Marty, I'm looking to see that we are live. I don't see that we are. There we are. We're live there and off and running, and say hello to RG Jubilee and Steve Jokums. Hope he said it was brutally cold on Fox Lake, 14 degrees uh, below zero. You got 14 degrees centigrade there. That certainly would be cold. 6 degrees Fahrenheit, I would say, unless he's living in centigrade up there. Cliff Watson, hello down in Pomona, Australia. Doug Forrest is in Los Angeles. We got Tommy Usiak and Gary Gerald, Tom Celentano, mostly Park. Thank you all for being part of our conversation today. You won't regret it as we get a busy 2 weeks kicked off here on the Space Coast. And we'll have some repeat shows. We're going to have some guests without me on the show next week as I go to SpaceCom in Orlando. And we're always going to be thinking about our lost Apollo, Columbia, and Challenger heroes on the darkest week of NASA at the end of the month there. So, and let's see. Yes, it is a holiday. Happy Martin Luther King Day to everybody. Couldn't find any appropriate space things to talk about the great Martin Luther King, except the fact that NASA and Marty, my co-producer, hi Marty there, you would probably back this up that NASA and to be always tried to be diversified and inclusive of independent of race, color, or creed. Correct, Marty? You feel like NASA was a leader of this, what Martin Luther King stood for?
Yeah, it could have been a leader, but I wouldn't say they've always been that way, Mark. It wasn't until roughly space shuttle days when they became more diversified, at least as far as
There you go.
astronauts.
Somebody spent his life career at working as a contractor for NASA. So yes, good MLK Day to everybody, and we do respect the holiday despite working and having a regular agenda today. So I, of course, grew up and remember Martin Luther King, and when he was assassinated, that's another moment as a teenager that my other male friends looked at each other, Marty, and we go, what are they going to do? Just kill everybody that doesn't agree with them? They just assassinated Kennedy. They assassinated Martin Luther King. They assassinated Robert Kennedy. They being insurgents, let's call them. So, all right. Well, Mitch Rothman, we love Mitch. I've been trying to call him left or right. Yeah, Marty, why don't you swing that over to the Artemis side of the world over there? There you go. By Mitch Rothman's manned space launch was founded in 2020. It's a monster of a Facebook page where I think he's got like 17,000 people that celebrate the space age just like we do here. Join them if you haven't and join the conversation with Man Space. There's their Facebook page. They also have that's actually their YouTube channel page. And their Facebook, like I said, has like 18,000. And he talks about the things that we talk about in the early days, and then is segueing some to the shuttle era. So our sponsor today, Man Space, why not click them after the show and start following there? Mitch Rothman, his wife Paula, the main administrators on there. Mitch will be around next week, maybe. I don't. He said he's coming for the Astronaut Memorial Sunday. So, Mitch, look forward to seeing you and hopefully Paula on Sunday at our Astronaut Memorial. There is the advertisement for it. We're going to broadcast it live on this ASM YouTube channel. Jan Davis out there. Marty's seen her 2 or 3 times already getting things autographed. Marty, Jan does a terrific show. You saw it with me Saturday morning, and she really is just a pleasant person to be around. Is what I want to say, Marty. You and all the autograph hounds think the same.
Yeah, we sure do, Mark.
Yeah, she's very personable. She had an important job after being an astronaut. Not that that wasn't important, but she was over at Marshall Space Center over the assured safety. She was the safety lead on the return to space STS-114 after the Columbia disaster. So you're going to enjoy Jan Davis, whether you're there with us Sunday at 1 o'clock at Sandpoint Park or watching us via our YouTube channel, thanks to Mike Ronaldo and his team setting us up there. And our Space Memorabilia show is February 7th. Okay, that's a hard one. It's at the Hyatt Place. Jan's going to be signing her book. She's got 2 books there that she wrote about her Air Force dad from 11 to 1. Books only. Okay, please don't embarrass yourself by turning your way because you want a shuttle model autograph. She's not doing that. And we don't question that, do we, Marty? We just abide. I don't care what her reason is, and I don't want to talk her into signing anything else because they are rare breeds on our planet. Only 640 people can say they orbited the Earth, and she's one of 83 women that did it. So look forward to Space Memorabilia show. And as we're going to talk a little bit about Artemis coming up here, let's talk about it right now. There's our crew. The window opens up February 6th. They had the a launch broadcast for that. Marty, I got some text this morning that they've already moved it to February 8th. Is that true to you, to your knowledge?
February 8th, 11:40 p.m.
Damn, why do they want them at night? You would think they would want to see the vehicle's reaction in the daylight. I don't understand these night launches. They're not. Yeah, they look a little spectacular, but you're looking at the flame of the rocket. You don't even see the crew after about the first mile in space because it's too dark. But yeah, I don't understand. And they're going to the moon. There's no landing schedule and so forth. No, they're not landing on the moon. No, they're not even orbiting the moon. How many people, Marty, have you talked to in the last week, let's say, with this Artemis fever going on, that think they're orbiting the moon? Do you run into people that say that or not?
No.
Okay. All right.
I'm just not in the same area that you are. But
what I'm trying to say is they're not orbiting the moon. And I know space workers out there, and I'm not going to embarrass them on air, that thought we were orbiting the moon. I said, no, we are doing it. Here's the goals here. We've got Glover and I knew I didn't write their names down, so I wasn't going to remember them all. But the commander, the only rookie is the Canadian on the far right. Okay. Everyone else has been to space. The whole idea is to perform a flight test of the spacecraft, okay, in a loop around the moon and back to Earth. They're going to practice some rendezvous techniques in Earth orbit right after launch, okay? That'll be important. But they're going to validate the spacecraft's ECLSS, Environmental Control systems, in deep space with humans on board. That really seems weird to me, but then again, we did test the environmental control system in space on STS-1 and didn't do a uncrewed test of a shuttle. However, that system was the tried and true submarine system. all right, where you've got to change out CO2 canisters. The new environmental control system, you don't change out filters. And I've heard some things about it, but they're testing it for the first time in space live with crew on board. If it doesn't work, I don't know what the backups are. Okay. Marty's already got a wonderful, intelligent question from all of you out there.
Yeah, Steve Holcomb is asking, is Jan Davis coming to Shuttle Fest?
No, no, she's not. But we're saving her for Steve. We're already formulating Shuttlefest 6 will be the 50th anniversary of NASA choosing women in their corps of astronauts. So we're thinking of creating Shuttlefest 6 as at least the Saturday theme event as the 50th anniversary of women in NASA astronaut corps. But we're right now being a little strong-handed with some of the astronauts. Let's tell us yes or no. No doesn't upset us. We got plenty of astronauts coming. So, but Jan didn't. She really didn't express a big interest to come into this one. However, Tammy Miller and stuff have been asking about that. Okay, let's stick it to the program here. Talking about Artemis. All right. So why are they doing this mission when it's not going on any profile that would ever go to the moon? Okay, and it is a circuitous. How do you say that word? It is a roundabout way of circulating the moon in a free return launch, much like Apollo 13 used. Now, in this area here, after about 2 orbits, the second or third orbit, they're going to do some serious rendezvous with the third stage to practice that. No docking involved. And then they're going to fire the lunar orbit engine to go to the moon. And there they are in a big loop behind the moon, not orbiting it. Okay. And so we're here straightening that out for the masses because it's a very big misconception. And in fact, I'm going to tell you how close they're going to come to the moon in a minute. How close are they going to come to the moon? And for me, I just have to go like that because uh, I don't understand other than testing the Orion vehicle, which we could do for 10 days in Earth orbit, like Apollo 7. Uh, we're doing it in a dangerous moon mission. That yes, first time Americans have left Earth to go to the vicinity of the moon since December 1972. All right, and yet they're just a big loop around it. Okay, uh, and they will go the furthest that mankind has ever gone away from the Earth because how far away they're going to be from the backside of the moon. So, but nonetheless, they're going for it, and it's going to be great. There is Ophelia saying, "Muy Ophelia." There, yes, RT Robert Law. It is a free return test flight. Well, I guess you could call it that way. Okay, because if the SLS rocket puts them right in that corridor where they're supposed to, they don't have to do anything. The orbit and orbital mechanics and gravity of the moon will do the rest to bring them back in the Earth's vicinity. Then they'll fine tune it for the landing wherever they're going to land. Marty, great picture there, the Artemis rollout. He was there. I guess you had to be at a certain spot at 4 in the morning, Marty, to go out there.
I had to be there at 4:30. People, employees, their passes, they could be out there anytime between 5 and 7 o'clock.
So Marty was there. I wasn't. We had some friends there, including Bill Whiting. Hi, Bill. Bill was there. Julie Clay. Hi, Julie. And Tammy Miller. Hi, Tammy. Okay. And for that matter, hello, Connie McDaniel. She's probably watching. Sharon Rodriguez. Hope you're watching from Sands History Museum. Hazel Banks. Sorry, Hayes, if you're watching. Her Buffalo Bills got beat last night. But we've got a lot of people that don't chime in that watch from time to time. And that's a beautiful picture taken by Chris Lay Marie. All right, nice side light on it there in the morning light. Marty, and there's another Chris Lay Marie picture. He is a budding photographer from Ohio. Nice reflection there. Marty, where's your other picture? That's your other picture there that Marty had there. He had some good pictures in there. One distinct thing is on the SRBs is 250 for the America's 250th birthday. So Marty, the sights, sounds, smells, give us a little flashback of that from the other morning.
Well, it was a nail
You got
biting.
the UCAC family microphone on there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was a nail biting 0.2 miles an hour rollout to the pad, and I really can't say to me it wasn't exciting. I mean, I've seen about 140 rollouts. It was very unique in that it was Artemis, uh, but it was interesting. It was nice watching it. I know Bill, Tammy, and Julie, and this guy Jason. They were thrilled. It was their first time watching a rollout, and they're still talking about it. So it was, for a lot of people, it was a great sight and great experience.
Uh, what did it strike you as bigger than you thought, or anything like that?
No, if anything, probably a little bit smaller because I seen it in the VAB, and and I don't want to sound like an idiot or a snob or anything. Um, uh, Compared to the Apollo, it was smaller. I can't say I was impressed. I was intrigued. It was nice watching it, um, but that's just from my uh, aspect. You would have thought differently. So, like Tammy and Bill and Julie, again, they're still raving about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, you've seen some Saturn V rollouts and all the shuttle rollouts. So, yeah, hard to impress somebody with those kind of experience behind them. But it certainly's got a lot of everybody say, we're going, we're going. Yes, we're going. We're going to deep space, deep outer space. But still, uh, it's if 1 inch is 1,000 miles, okay, the Earth is an 8-inch globe. And we have been with 250 miles where the space station is 1/4 of an inch off the Earth in scale. 1/4 of an inch in the last 50 years, except for Jared Isaacman's one and done mission. It went up 850 miles, less than an inch off the Earth. And the moon on a scale of 1 inch is 1,000 miles, and the Earth being an 8-inch globe, and we've only been a 1/4 inch off of it in 50 years, the moon is 25 feet away. All right, so we're going from 1/4 of an inch off the Earth to 25 feet away from the Earth on this mission. It's dangerous. It is, I'm sure they have total confidence in the ECLSS environmental system on Orion. But again, it's never been tested, and NASA knows that there's always this thing that can bite you that somebody doesn't think through, like pure oxygen in a spacecraft burns quite readily. So, of course, they knew that. They just didn't think there was enough of it in the Apollo 1 command module to create a problem. But so there's a lot of unknowns, and the closest they're going to get to the moon is 6,400 miles. Okay. Maybe 5,000 miles, but the advertised is 6,000. And I read in the NASA literature over the weekend that they said that the astronauts will be the distance they will be from the Earth, the moon, and the Earth will be in view out their window. And they said it will be like holding a basketball at arm's length, the moon, in their eyesight. So this is the backside of the moon in this picture. That's about a basketball length away from me there. So they're not getting very close to it. In fact, they're not even, I hear they're not even taking professional cameras with them, meaning detachable Canon or Nikkor lenses of 500 or 600 millimeter. They're taking a zoom camera lens. They're not looking for landing areas or anything like that because they're in the wrong profile around the moon. So, but this is as close as they're getting, NASA said. The moon will look as big as a basketball at arm's length to them. All right. So, at the closest. Go ahead, Marty, with that question or comment.
Yeah, RJ Jubilee is asking if they do the same trip as Apollo 13, why did they say that this rocket is going to go higher than any rocket did before?
because it's going 5,000 miles past the moon than Apollo 13 did. Apollo 13, when it looped around the moon, was still at least 200 miles. It was like 200 miles from the surface. It was still pretty close to the surface. I forget which. Some of you are working your thumbs on that so you can tell me exactly. But I'm pretty sure they were within 1,000 miles of the moon when they looped around it. I'm trying to remember the pictures they took as they saw it with the telephoto lenses and stuff like that. So good question there. And what about the heat shield? Well, I hope it holds together there. Like I said, NASA and Marty can substantiate this. They wouldn't be okaying this if they thought there were any anomalies here. However, it's a 10-day ride. All right, 3 days there, 3 days back. It's a little bit further than the Apollo profile. So yes, it is going further than, and they say who? Uh, who was in the furthest seat uh, on Apollo 13? I think they give Fred Hayes credit for being the furthest human because he was on the furthest right hand seat when they went around the moon. But that's what that's all about. Is they are going further than Apollo 13 and the backside of the moon and around. So
But Mark, I heard the same thing. That was Fred Hayes, and he wasn't in the right seat. He would be in the LMP side of the lunar module. So Jim Lovell should have been the furthest out on the left side.
yeah, he's on the LMP there.
Unless they're flying legs first.
And Steve's done the Googling for me. That's 100, and they were with 150 miles of the surface of the moon. Okay. This is going to be 5 times further from the moon than they were. Thank you, Steve, for that fact check there. All right. 10 beautiful shuttle, and we will be talking more about the Artemis launch and the profile of it later this week and maybe next week in a program that I've put together on this with the help of somebody that would rather not be named at the moment. So, hello, Jim McDade. Okay. He said he'll see us all in person on the space coast during launch week. All right, Jim, come on by. We may sit you in the seat beside me here, buddy. Love that. 10 beautiful shuttles launched in January. And we've talked about the 5 of them up at the top up there. Every orbiter was launched. Of course, Challenger was not successful. Endeavour and Discovery, Endeavour and Columbia had the most missions, going off the top of my head, but I have it written down there. And launched on the 16th of January. And in the middle of their mission right now is the STS-107. And of course, we're coming up on the 40th anniversary of the Challenger launch and disaster. And STS-107 was in 2023. Okay, so we're 23 years beyond that. 2003, I'm sorry. What does the decal patch say about 107? Now, 107 was Space Hab. It was a microgravity experiment on Space Hab, and it was launched after 113, 112, 111, 110, 109, 108. So it's out of sequence. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shuttles were launched after 105 in the sequence there in 2001 in August. And this was some part of the card hat missions of the space station were gotten priority over this. This was the last mission scheduled to go to the International Space Station. That was not going to space station, correct myself. And the central element of the patch is the microgravity symbol flowing into the rays of the astronaut symbol. That's what the MG is there in the astronaut symbol. The sunrise is representative of the numerous experiments that are the dawn of a new era for continued microgravity research on the International Space Station and beyond. The breadth of science conducted on this mission will have widespread benefits to life on Earth. The constellation Columbia, the dove, symbolizes peace on Earth. and of course the Space Shuttle Columbia. The 7 stars also represent the mission crew members and honor the original Mercury astronauts who paved the way to make research in space possible. And of course, you have the Israeli flag is adjacent to the name of Elon Ramon on the wing, on the right wing, the first person from Israel to fly in a space shuttle and the only person to fly from Israel in space so far. And what this little recap doesn't mention, this is the only patch designed like the space shuttle, the only one that has the outline of the beautiful orbiter there. Rick Husband, the commander, was on his second flight. Willie McCool was a rookie. Mike, we'll talk. Let's see. Let's get them here. There we are. That's Dave. That is the Rick Husband on the ground, and then they recreated this picture once they were in space. Let's see, where's Willie? Willie's on the right. That's Laurel Clark in the middle, sitting down. To her right is Dave Brown, his Navy Captain, Doctor of the Year. Willie McCool, here's Laurel Clark, a rookie. Elon Ramon, a rookie. Kapalna Chawla and Michael Anderson are in the back. Okay, and they had flown before. All right, and of course that's Ramon on the back right there. It was a 16-day mission that, for everything in space, perfectly executed. It was that last minute reentry over East Tennessee at 9 a.m. On February 1st, 2003, when it disintegrated just 16 minutes away from home. And we'll talk, there's the beautiful launch of Columbia on its last mission to space. So we'll talk about that mission here and see our astronauts there in just a minute. But first, we want to talk about the contracts I was talking about. The contract for Rocketdyne to develop the F1 engine was awarded on January 19th, 1959 for $102 million, covering design and development of a single-chamber liquid propellant rocket engine in the 1 to 1.5 million thrust class. All right. To be used for the Nova super booster concept. That is Kevin Hostrasser, who did an excellent talk. He is a rocket scientist, worked for Rocketdyne on this engine, and go check him out in our YouTube channel. You won't regret that. And so $102 million in today's money is about 1 billion, something like that. 10 times the amount back then of what things are now. And it was a very successful booster. Oh no, Marty, did I not bring my notes? I did bring my notes. Yes, I brought my notes. There we go. Okay, the engine uses a gas generator cycle developed in the U.S. in the late 1500s. They were used on the first stage of the Saturn V rocket. There is the immensity, how big they are, on the bottom business end of a Saturn 1C. S1C is what it was called. 65 F1 engines were launched aboard 13 Saturn V's, and each first stage landed in the Atlantic Ocean. And I don't think they had a serious anomaly on any of them. 10 of those followed approximately the same flight azimuth to 72 degrees, but of the 13 Saturns, but Apollo 15 and 17 followed a more significantly southerly route, and the Skylab launch was a few degrees north of directly overhead, 50 degrees. 10 F1 engines were installed on 2 production Saturn V's that never flew. The first is on display at Johnson Space Center, even though it's owned by the Smithsonian, and the other one is on display at the Infinity Science Center at John Stennis Center in Mississippi. All right, well, Infinity Science Center is not at John Stennis Center in Mississippi. It's on the Louisiana-Mississippi border on I-10. All right. What are the Saturn V engines that are used out at our Kennedy Space Center? Those are ground test replicas. Okay. the S-1CT All Systems Test Stage. A ground test replica is on display at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And the dynamic test vehicle is on display at Huntsville. All right, in there. Though they're real, they were never intended to be flown in space. The F-1 engine, one of the greatest engines mankind has ever built. Also, on this date in 1962, I've got how out of sequence. I've got that out of sequence. I'm sorry, but we'll jump to that. In 1962 was the contract for the Titan rocket. Shown here, this is the gantry multiple exposure by one of the pool photographers out there watching the Gemini launches, and this one's from Gemini 10. This famous picture here that we've all seen. Titan II was an intercontinental ballistic missile developed by the Martin Company from the earliest Titan I missile. It was going to originally be used to wipe out Moscow and any other adversaries, but it became the perfect rocket for the for NASA to use for its Gemini crew capsule, and they had a bunch of them that they launched. Okay, at $3.63 million a launch, a little over $3 million a launch. Okay, probably 30 million in today's money. Okay, think about $30 million a launch. That's not too bad. A shuttle was a $500 million a launch on there. But there's all the GT1, 2, 3 to 12 were crewed. Okay, hypergolic fuels were mixed in the chamber. It created the explosion that created the lift through two nozzles. And they drove like a sports car, according to Wally Schirra, who rode an Atlas rocket, a Mercury, and a Saturn V. Or he rode an S-1B on his Apollo 7. But what an efficient engine. And 15 of them were delivered to NASA for the Gemini program. And there you see the 12 that were used on the launches there. There is one at the Tom Stafford Air and Space Museum in Weatherford, Oklahoma, his hometown, is where there's one at. So, all right, and let's go to the next important contract given in this date in space history. In 1961, okay, was the Surveyor spacecraft, okay? Hughes Aircraft Company, as in Howard Hughes, the famous eccentric billionaire of the 60s and 70s. The 750-pound, three-legged unmanned spacecraft would carry 200 pounds of experiments, including zoom television cameras, a drill to sample the lunar surface, chemical analysis equipment, and a seismometer. All right. And so that contract was given out on this date in space history. And it cost $469 million in 1962 money, which is about almost $5 billion, let's say, today. From June 66, this is the one that was on Apollo 12, walked up to it and took off the on the right-hand side is the arm for the claw that was going to scoop up soil and basically test the tensile strength of the moon. They could tell by how the stress on the engine pulling it back with sensors, how heavy the moon was. We didn't know if you would land there, would you crack through it like peanut brittle on top? Below, were there lavernous caverns everywhere? We really didn't think so. Also, there was a conjecture that there'd be 5 to 10 feet of dust in areas of the moon where it would just engulf. Nope, that wasn't going to happen because we sent the Ranger spacecraft. The Kamikaze Rangers crashed into the moon, and they could tell that it was pretty solid surface, but we didn't know for sure. And So they sent 7 robots to the surface. This was the first American spacecraft to achieve a soft landing on an extraterrestrial body. It took a little over 2 days to get there. A deceleration of just 3 minutes to a soft landing with the engines on the bottom there. 5 landed successfully, including the first one, Surveyor 1. This is actually Surveyor 3. We'll see some other pictures of it. 2 failed. Surveyor 2 crashed at a high velocity after a failed mid-course correction, and Surveyor 4 was lost 2.5 minutes before its scheduled touchdown, possibly exploding by something wrong in the combustion chamber or the fuel lines there. All 7 are still on the moon. Of course, the 5 that landed safely are sitting pretty. No one had returned. None of the missions. They didn't want to return any of them, and then they thought, well, let's do a pinpoint landing with Apollo 12, and the camera is on display at the National Space Museum. But I got the other part of it. The claw scoop. Now, this was one of the most famous pictures of space at the time. When Surveyor 1 landed on the moon in June 1966, this was the picture that was relayed around the world, showing you that it had dug in a little bit. This is one of the landing pads. That in the upper right-hand corner with the pattern on it is just a test pattern to gauge colors and stuff. So they could tell that some of the dirt was thrown up by the exhaust. And it started taking panoramas. It would take small pictures and they would put them together after beam back to Earth. And the film was not developed on the moon. It was sent back by radio in a form of encrypted code that they could use at the time. So this was looking at the landscape. Now, when Surveyor landed, it landed in a crater. You're going to see that in a minute. So when they were looking at the panoramas, they were a little puzzled about where they were because the horizon looked so close. There's a big rock with a big shadow just barely missed by the Surveyor 1. There is Surveyor 3 on the moon with astronaut Al Bean. I think that's actually Pete Conrad. You couldn't tell because they didn't have stripes on their suits at the time. And there's the lunar module up at the edge of the crater that it's taken pictures of. 2.5 years before is when this landing was. There's the panorama that Surveyor 7 did take, looking up at that crater area up there. See that at the top? This is what it was seeing up there, wondering, where are we? What's going on? How come this horizon looks so close? And they figured out, we're in a crater. And this is the scoop that is in the Cosmosphere. It's in a very reflecting case there at the Cosmosphere in Hutchinson, Kansas. A picture that I took that I was fascinated with. It's actually scooped up soil on the surface of the moon. And here is where it dug into it, right there. There's the arm, the arm of the scoop there, and there's where it dug in around there. And even the last surveyor, they could take that and throw that into a chemical box to try and test what the soil was made of there. So big missions, big contracts given out. F-1 engine in 1959, the Titan Gemini launch vehicle in 1962, and the Surveyor spacecraft in 1961, all becoming part of NASA history. Yep. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? There we go. I always like emphasizing the astronauts that we've lost were great people, had great lives, and we take the high road and not dissecting the accidents that now at this decades later has been rehashed over and over. The things that are known privately, we hope they stay private. But this is Space Hab in the background. That was the smaller space environmental incubator, so to speak, in the payload bay. And we've got a lot of space hab things that were flown in space that we're going to create a wonderful display on later this summer. There's all the astronauts checking it out at the equipment out at Kennedy Space Center. There is Space Hab in there, so they'd have to go through a long tunnel tube, okay, to go in there. And of course, all this was lost in the reentry, but nonetheless, there is Space Hab in the back there. And they did some laser. Actually, that is the Earth's. They did some laser shooting from the mast, Marty. No, they didn't. Okay, that's the Earth's horizon there. It just looks like there's a laser coming out of the stabilization rudder there in the back. And see at the very top how that bulbouses out a little bit. That no other orbiter has that. That's where they had the pod for the camera on top on Columbia. So that's one way to tell Columbia is you look up at the stabilizer or rudder at the top and see if it's got a little compartment up there that they had a camera that they would put in and take out and other instruments over time in there. So I love that kind of detail that I didn't know anything about. So we love that. Let's see. And so let's look at a little bit about our fallen astronauts who had, as a wake-up call on January 19th, Fake Plastic Trees by Radiohead. This was dedicated to pilot Willie McCool. Okay. And the red team had Amazing Grace by Blackwatch. And that was dedicated to Laurel Clark with bagpipes. The song played at her wedding for Wake Up in Space, okay, was Amazing Grace, of course, with the 51 Band of Highland Brigade, with Blackwatch and the 51 Band of Highland Brigade bagpipes, okay, on there. That's Richardson there and there's the crew again. That we have heard such fabulous stories, particularly about David Brown on the right there. Elon Ramon, I've met both of his sons that have been here on the Space Coast. I will be attending the Apollo 1 ceremony out at the Space Center on the 27th. We also have an Apollo 1 documentary we're going to Thursday. So there's our fallen heroes of Columbia. There you see the hatch cover there that we have from the we don't have the Columbia hatch cover. Wish we did, but don't know where that happened to go. So God bless our crew of STS 107. We will never forget them and their contribution to society and remembering their family and friends this anniversary time. Well, let's go out today with some something here in our museum that we have. STS-49 in 1992 had the first chute to slow down the shuttle from about 180-degree landing and to slow it down because the brakes were burning up, right, Marty? They had a big problem with the brakes to stop it. A heavy 100-ton spacecraft coming in at over 200 miles an hour, all that inertia going through to stop through those brakes, man, it was tough to keep them. Sometimes it even start burning up on the shuttle runway. So after 48 launches, they decided let's put a drag chute on the back like we do for other aircraft, and 49 was the first one to do it. So you see out at Atlantis, you see it. Marty, could you whip together your arrow there real quick?
Yep.
And that is the cover for the parachute right there. Of course, that is the hatch cover for it. That has to have some sort of thermal protection around it, or the flames of reentry licked back there would burn up the chute. Okay, that fell off on STS-95, John Glenn's launch. Fell right on the launch pad. So they didn't know if this was going to compromise the the mission. In fact, they did do some photographs from reconnaissance satellites to see if the drag chute was hanging out, for example, on STS-95. Because then it would burn up on reentry, and that could cause a whole other problems. But of course, nothing they could do about it. They had to bring them back anyway. And there is again a close up of the drag chute cover on Atlantis, and here it is in our museum. Okay, above the door that was covered with this, the door that had the chute in it is below it. There was a pyrotechnics in there, a charge that blasted it out. And it's just scuffed up from being it's ejected on the runway right before landing, and it bounces along the runway there. So we are happy to have this. There's the mortar load there on the back of it there, and you can see how it's frayed from it there. And again, this is the drag chute cover that we think is a pretty cool thing to have at the American Space Museum on display. In fact, that's the drag chute container, the green thing on the right of it there. So hope that you find that of interest today as the drag chute become an important and a workable device that did help slow down the shuttle. In fact, some of the astronauts say they could feel a little tug as it slowed it down just at the right speed there to save those brakes a little bit.
And Mark,
there.
I asked one of the astronauts, I forget who it was, who was commander, and it may have been Bakes, when they hit the brakes. And they didn't hit the brakes until after the parachute was let go.
Deployed. Oh, really?
No. After deployment, after the parachute
was deployed, then they hit the brakes.
Well, after the parachute was severed, if you will.
Oh, severed even?
Yeah.
Oh, after it came off, because you see it break it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't ask enough detailed questions of astronauts like that. But then sometimes they look at you and say, that was 20 years ago, Mark. Let me think here. Waitress, I'll have another beer. Well, I think about that. Jim McDade, thank you for watching. We can't wait to see you on the Space Coast. Maybe see you at Zorella's. I know there's some things being planned. Michael Bruno down there in Miami. They're hot down in Miami for the National College Championship between the University of Indiana and the U of Michigan. It should be a wonderful game down there tonight. Robert Law up in Dundee, Scotland. Huh?
They're playing Indiana.
What'd I say?
Michigan.
Oh, man, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, they are playing Indiana. I didn't know Michigan could come out of my mouth so freely like that. I should have said Ohio State. They're playing the 15-0 Indiana Hoosiers, all right, versus the Miami Hurricanes that I think have lost 2 games this year. Thank you for correcting me, Marty. Carlton Bailey, hope you're feeling well. Gary Gerald is watching today. Thank you, Gary. Mostly parked. Tom Celentano. Heard they got a lot of good snow up there in Connecticut area, Tom. Tommy UCX in Pennsylvania. Cliff Watson down in Pomona, Australia. Love you, brother. Keep fighting the fight. Doug Forrest is in Los Angeles. Steve Jokem's in a 5-degree situation up at Fox Lake on the shores of Lake Michigan up there in Illinois. And RG Jubilee, Ophelia Sotterill, thank you for watching, young lady. And to the rest of you, we hope to see you, that you can make plans at the Sandpoint Park. Wonderful, wonderful celebration. We think it's the best one in the country for our fallen heroes. And I'm working up all the details of it as we speak. So thank you, Mitch Rothman and your man Space, for sponsoring this segment of the American Space Museum, this episode today, which is well into about 1,430 some episodes. I'm figuring 1,500, Marty's going to be around April Fool's Day. So won't that be some fun and to celebrate it back then? So it's all because of you wanting this program, wanting the guests, wanting the that we bring you every month, wanting this date in space history like we did today. So we are so grateful of this outreach and the opportunity to do it Monday through Friday. So, Marty, anything to clean up over there?
Jim McDade is bringing you an unopened special delivery from 1969.
Wow, Jim. Thank you very much. Yeah. Jim is a thank you. Well, wow. Look forward to that. Jim was one of the first space hipsters, really, that Emily Carney founded. And he is in Huntsville. And I must have delivered a pretty good factual show today because him or and nobody else is jumping on me about some of my facts today. And as Marty Winkle knows, sometimes it's a miracle we pull it off, right, Marty? Like today. But I'm gratefully busy on behalf of the American Space Museum. Our executive director, Gabriel Rothblatt, and I are having the time of our lives as he deals with the money and I deal with the day to day here at our American Space Museum. And we've had a change in culture. We were open Sunday for the first time in history, and we had over 25 people on Sunday here, Marty, and a good profitable day for our gift shop. So we're now open 7 days a week, 10 to 5, right 3 blocks away from the Indian River, where is your best spot to see the launch of Artemis. There is no other place, is there, Marty, to see the Artemis launch unless you're on the property. If you're not on the property, the closest you can get is where we will be, 9 miles away. And the Max Brewer Bridge will be filled with people, and it will be exciting at 11 something in the evening on February 8th now, which is, you know what February 8th is, Marty? And that is the current launch date, right?
Yeah.
February 8th. That's Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, but we're launching after Super Bowl Sunday.
Maybe. If it don't go into overtime. Okay. But I'm just saying, it could be a big candlestick to end the NFL season or not. So thank you all for watching. On behalf of the American Space Museum and our U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation, I'm Mark Marquette saying we can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.